Okay, here we are ready to begin our soldering. First of all, we're going to put on our safety glasses. If you have other glasses, then you need to make sure that you put these underneath your safety glasses to make sure that you are safe at all times. So let's see what we have in our bin here. We have some information about our nightlight and some tips about soldering. Before we get to that, let's first take about another couple safety tips actually before we get to that. Sleeves. Roll them up, please. Ladies, if you have long hair, please use a hair tie and put it in a ponytail. Hair ties are provided in the classroom, so make sure that you don't have loose hanging hair that could potentially get into your soldering work. So next we are going to take our bag with our nightlight kit. Everything that you will need is in here. Before you even open it, in your bin, you're going to get a marker and you're going to write your name on there. So we'll write our name and the period, let's say period 1. Okay, now that we've written that, this is a good way to store our materials if we don't finish all our soldering work in one day. So we're going to take the material out. First we have the paper that gives us the instructions. It gives us a part list and a schematic diagram. And on the back, it gives us the printed circuit board PCB layout and what it's going to look at the back and what at the front and the assembly instructions. So this is very useful information. Make sure you don't lose that. And if you don't finish it, put that back into your kit. So the first step says identify and solder R1 and R2 to the PCB where designated. All right, so let us take all the materials out of our bag. We have a smaller bag in here which is stapled together where all our little parts are. So be careful that you don't lose anything because these parts are small. This is our PCB, our printed circuit board. And then these are our materials or our electronic components. So I'm gonna gently put these out here. Okay, so we found our 5 components. We actually, if we go to the other side of our paper, we can find the PCB board, the R1, which is gray, red, black. All right, so this is my R1. The R2, which is 10 kilo ohms, is brown, black, orange. I have that one too. I have an LED. We recognize that one. We have the transistor, and we have our photocell, and our battery, snap, and assembly instructions. So we have all the materials. So back to our assembly instructions. It says identify and solder R1 and R2. So let me start with R1, which was the gray, red, black, and that needs to go into the R1 position. So the way we do that is we put one leg through here and bend it, and then we're going to bend the other leg also. Put it all the way through. It's nice at this point to make sure it's flush with your PCB, your printed circuit board. You can bend these a little bit to prevent them from falling out because your solder work all happens on the back on the green part. So we're going to do one component at a time. Also in your bin you find this little plate, paper plate, and a clip. And to make sure that things are not moving around, you're going to clip your PCB to your paper plate, and now we can begin our solder work. So as you can see, we need to just put a tiny little bit of solder to connect our legs here with the silver circles on our soldering board. So here's our soldering iron, and some soldering instructions are here. So we've placed our first part in there. We're going to clean the tip with a metal sponge. This is our metal sponge. Then we're going to re-tin the tip with our solder. Oh, before I get to that, let me get a piece of solder. I think it's easiest just to clip off a piece of solder. There's a little clipper here that you can hold. And now we are ready to go. So it says re-tin the tip, so we're going to put a little bit of tin in here. You see a little bit of smoke. And now we are ready to solder the first joints. So what you do is you come with the soldering iron from one side and the solder on the other side. You wait till it melts. Oh, that's not quite enough. And that's enough. So maybe you can zoom into that. We can see there's very, very little solder that is needed. We go to the other side. And there it is. So that's our first component soldered on. Now, in order to make sure that these legs are not in the way, we're going to use our clipper and we're going to clip this off. You don't have to make it too short, but just so it's not in the way of any other components. And we clip that off. All right. So now we are going to go put on our next component, which is our second resistor. So again, we're going to bend these two legs of the resistor. And absolutely be sure that you have the right resistor in the right place, because it's not going to work well if you don't do that. So you push it through nice and flush, and you turn it over. Bend those legs so it doesn't fall out. And again, we're going to clip this to the board. That's all right. That's our second one. So you see it goes really fast. When we're soldering, less soldering is more. It's a little bit like glue. Too much glue doesn't work either. Too much solder doesn't work either. So we've done some easy ones. Our next one, according to our instructions, says solder the LED to the PCB. All right. So the LED, in this case, is red. Some of you might have a white one. Some of you have a red one. Has two legs. And I'll put it here on the plate so we can see it. And we see that one leg is longer than the other one. All right. And it says in the instructions here, the long lead goes to the positive side, while the short lead goes to the negative side. Okay. So let's keep that in mind as we do that. Let's turn it around. So our LED, it tells us the long lead goes on the positive side. So we see a little plus there. That's where it goes. And then the shorter leg goes to the negative side. Again, if you do not put in your LED the right way, your night light will not function. So be sure that you make that correct. So bend these a little bit. Now you see this is a slightly harder way to solder because you get some other stuff around it. So you have to have some precision. Again, we can clean the tip a little bit. Retin it. Oh, there's enough on there still. There we go. That's good. All right. Again, we're going to clip it off. Okay. Our next component, so we got our LED, we have our two resistors. The next one, it tells us to solder the Q1, our transistor. Transistor. Again, I can't. Hopefully you can see this. You see the shape of the transistor. The shape needs to match with the shape on the circuit board. So make sure that the flat side is matching the flat side. So you have to bend those leads a little bit to push it through there. This one you will not be able to get as flush as the other components, but that's okay. But you see it works out well. So I got it through here. Ready to solder. Now these are pretty close to each other, so you have to be careful that you do not put too much solder in there. I like to start with the middle one. That's enough. All right. So that was our hardest one, I would say, where the legs are the closest to each other. And you see how very little solder is necessary to make this work. Let me clip the ends. All right. Our last component is our photocell. All right. Photocell doesn't matter how you put it in there. There's no orientation, so that's easy. We just plunk it in there. Push it through. Again, bend it. Same procedure as for all the other things. And that's done. Okay. clipping the ends. Oops. All right, now we're left with one thing, which is our battery pack. All right, the battery pack, obviously it matters how we put that in there. The red is the positive and the black is the negative. If this is not long enough, I think it is long enough, we'll see. We'll push it through there. I just do one at a time so you can't go wrong basically. Push it over, and then the black one, push that one through. It's a little finicky here to make sure that it doesn't fall out. Maybe it's easiest to do one at a time. And that should be it. All right, so we have soldered all our components on here right now. Still need to be careful with it, it's gentle. The final step is to test our nightlight. Cut. All right, here's our final step. So we have made this beautiful little nightlight. We have our battery pack. We need to put batteries in here. Now these batteries are just for testing. You don't get to take these batteries at home. We hope that you can find 2 AA batteries at home. Make sure you put them in the right way. All right, so now the batteries are in there. So good news, our LED does not come on, but once I cover up the photocell, it should be coming on. So hopefully we see that. Looks like these batteries are a little bit old, but there it comes on. And that completes our nightlight soldering. After you are done, clean up your little leftover pieces. Please, you can throw those out. Put everything back in the bin the way you found it. And you are ready to tell your teacher that you're done with soldering. You can demonstrate that it is working. And then you can continue with the other work that is posted in the classroom. Okay, here are some examples of nightlight circuits that did not go so well. First of all, you see that the components are not flush with the PCB. Not the biggest problem. What we can also see, for instance, that the transistor is the wrong way around here, so this one will never work. But let's turn it around also what went wrong here. We see massive globs of solder, which is really not going to work. So that means that you're creating short circuits here, and your nightlight will never work. So this was a really good example of how it's not done. Another very good example here is, again, that the components are not so flush, but the transistor is in the right way here. However, if we turn it over, we can see also that there's a massive amount of solder there, plus it's way too overheated at certain places, and they didn't cut off the leads actually, so that gives a huge problem. So some examples of what not to do. Again, what is a good example? This is a good example, and you see how little solder is really necessary to make this work. I hope that's helpful. Good luck, and do a good job.